Hey guys, it's Faye from Solar Flow and I am back with an all new video. Today's topic is a deep dive behind the veil energy read on 3 Australian hunks. We are looking into the energy of Michael Hutchence from In Excess, Hugh Jackman, as well as Mel Gibson. Now, this video is also by request because I have a great number of Australian viewers and Australian members in my membership, and this is really just a small way that I can extend my appreciation towards you guys, because with all the amazing content that you could be viewing on YouTube and with all the amazing things that you can be doing out in the so-called real world, the fact that you are here spending your time with me, viewing my content, taking the time to comment on it, and yes, even to share it, this is really just a small way in which I can extend my appreciation towards you guys. So thank you. Now, before we dive in, I do just want to remind you guys that channeling is it's not like preparing a recipe, right? We follow the instructions, and then at the end of following the instructions, we prepared a meal that we can now consume. Channeling is not like that. I kind of compare it to like a trip into Target, right? Because sometimes I go to Target having the intention of buying paper towels, but where do they keep the paper towels? With the necessities way back into the bowels of the store. What are we gonna pass along the way? All of these other cute things, which are by design sprinkled there to capture our attention. So sometimes I leave successfully and I've only left with the paper towels. But sometimes I find a cute planter that I have to take home with me as well. So I leave with the paper towels and the planter. And sometimes I forget about the paper towels altogether and I just leave with the cute planter and some other personal care items. Channeling is very much the same way. When I'm connecting to somebody's energy, whatever that person is choosing to share with me is what I am leaving with, even if it's not necessarily what I had in mind when I was thinking to connect to them. So I have a feeling the energy of at least one of these people might not exactly be what you guys maybe thought he was going to bring or what you maybe thought he was going to share. But just like we have free will when we are alive with who we want to spend our time with and what we want to conversate about, it's the same thing even when they're on the other side. So if this is what this person had chosen to share with me, we're going with it and we're going to say thank you. And sometimes, yes, this might be like the trip to Target where I don't get the paper towels. But did I get some other cute and interesting things along the way? Hell yeah. It's just like that in this case. So please approach the reading with Michael Hutchence having an open mind, because he still brought the goods, even if it's not necessarily the goods that we thought he was going to bring. So we are in fact starting with Michael Hutchence. We are then going to move on to Hugh Jackman, and we're going to finish up with Mel Gibson. So let's see what Michael Hutchence's energy wanted to share. So first and foremost, Michael Hutchence was the lead singer of a band by the name of In Excess. He was born in 1960 and he had crossed over in 1997. Now, I believe the coroner had determined the cause of the demise of his physical body to be strangulation. He had hung himself. But I remember at the time that there was some sprinkling of this idea or whispers that in fact it may have been due to autoerotic asphyxiation. Now, that is where a person will tie something around their throat to restrict the airflow, so that way while they are pleasuring themselves and they are reaching an orgasm, the orgasm is that much more enjoyable to them. Now, the only reason that I am bringing this up is because he himself had made a kind of like an indication that may have, I'm not saying that's why he actually had crossed over. It's just to say that he had made some sort of a subtle hint about something similar to that, and that's the only reason that I'm bringing it up to you guys, okay? So let's see what his energy wanted to share. Now, as soon as I had connected to his energy, he had shared with me that he was somewhat amused that people still care about him. Not in a fatalistic manner or as if he didn't matter, but just more genuine surprise, because now that he has been liberated from his body, we're going to come back to this. Now that he has been liberated from his body and the earth plane, he has realized how our time here on earth is but a blip in our overall existence and how limited we are with our time here. Now, why did I say we're going to come back to this? Because the fact that he had chosen the word liberated, as in liberated from his body, is notable. And it's for the same reason that I'm calling this out, that I read from a notebook when I am recording. Because the information that a person brings into me, and even the nuances in the way that they communicate and the words that they choose to use in their communication, it's not mine to take liberties with. As I say, I'm the hand that holds the pen of the channeled information. It's not like, well, I think this is what he meant, so I'm just going to put down what I think he meant. No. If he is intentionally using the word liberated, it's because to him, being free of his body does feel like a liberation. So yes, he is genuinely surprised, because now that he has been liberated, intentionally so choosing that word, from his body and the earth plane, he has realized how our time here on earth is but a blip in our overall existence and how limited we are with our time here. Now, it was at this time after he had shared this with me, his energy felt rather far away. And this I'm also going to call out because it is notable to the overall energy that had come in and the overall energy of what Michael Hutchence had chosen to share with me, which is how, for example, am I sharing with you that his energy felt like it was far away? It's the same way in which I can tell if, I know this is going to sound strange, but if it's like the same way in which I can tell if somebody is on this side and if they're still, their body is still alive, or if they're on the other side and their body, they're no longer in their body and they have crossed over. Because I'm going to compare it as such. Let's say, for example, the soul's essence, or the strength in which I can pick up the soul's essence, is akin to the light that a torch is emitting versus the light that a candle is emitting. Because let's say somebody is walking through a dark tunnel and they are holding up a torch. The light from that torch is going to be a lot brighter. And let's say they're walking through the tunnel to get from one end to the other end and somebody is waiting on the other end for them. The light of the torch may be strong enough, if you will, that the person waiting at the other end, they can see them as they're walking the entire way through the tunnel, even if it's a long tunnel. But now compare it if the person is walking through the tunnel just holding a candle, and it's a long tunnel. The person on the other end, are they going to be able to see that person when they first take off, or when they're even at the halfway point? Or maybe they're only going to be able to see them when they are close to the end of the tunnel, because it's the degree in which the light is emitted from the particular light source that they are holding. The energetic blueprint of a soul is very much the same as well. When they are on this side, the light that their soul's essence is emitting is akin more to a torch. But if they are on the other side, it's maybe more akin to the light of a candle. But now we're going to say, in the case of Michael Hutchence, imagine, if you will, that the tunnel is really, 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 really long. So even with the light of that one candle, I may not be able to pick up on his essence or pick up on his light until he is so much closer to me. So he energetically, while I was looking into his energy, had felt very far away from me. And he had also felt completely untethered to here, that on some level, to be completely honest, I felt that it was cruel to stay with him, or maybe stay with him is the wrong word. Because if he was agreeing to connect to my energy, then it's because he was obviously agreeing to talk to me. but it felt cruel to hold him back from going wherever it is that he wanted to go, so that I decided I was just going to be very, very direct with him. So I asked him if he wanted to share anything of note from his time being on the other side. Right? I'm not going to sit around just peppering him with a bunch of random questions. Like, it felt like he had places he wanted to go and things he wanted to do, so I was going to be direct. You're on the other side. Is there anything you can share with us from the other side? And this is what he had chosen to share with me. He said it is incredible how expansive the universe is and how freeing it is to not have a body. So again, this is akin to what he had shared earlier on, how he feels liberated from his body. So yes, to him, it is very freeing not to have a body. Now, he also shared how it's humorous how attached we are to our bodies and all the weird things we do to our bodies, himself included. To him, that's an indication of how veiled we truly are, that we so desperately cling to our bodies as if they are the most real parts of ourselves, when in actuality, they're the least real. Our bodies are, from his point of view, from being on the other side, more akin to a pair of shoes that we choose in any particular lifetime to reflect the mood we are in and how we want to adorn ourselves on that particular day. Because there is no time on the other side. 10 minutes, 10 hours, 10 years, all feels the same. Time is only a 3D construct that we experience here on the earth plane, because the energy here on earth is so heavy and so dense that we are in some ways bound by time. But once we're out of our body, we're no longer bound by time. So from his point of view, if you will, the way in which we might choose to put on a particular pair of shoes, or even like a shirt. I put on a plaid shirt this morning. It's a reflection of perhaps the mood that I was in, or the way in which I wanted to adorn my body on this particular day. So it's kind of like he's sharing that because on the other side, there's no construct of time, that the up to 100 years that a person or more that a person can have here on the earth plane, while to us feels long and lengthy, it's like that on the other side. It's like a day. So what we do with our bodies is kind of like how we dress ourselves in any particular lifetime. He also shared with me that he really doesn't come around all that much anymore, because there is so much more to explore being on the other side, and it really is a traveler's dream. He gave me this example to share with you guys, which is to say, look at, for an example, a business owner that doesn't necessarily go into the business every single day, because he's going to leave the running of the day-to-day operations to the employees that he has hired. Maybe he's going to go in like once a week or so. He's going to pick up like the cash that has come in. But he doesn't need to be there every single day to oversee the way in which things are running in his own personal business. So this is the example that he had brought in, which he was saying, look at it this way. He was in the office, if you will, i.e. closer to the earth plane, and that's why he even responded to my request to connect to his energy, because he is, in fact, spending a lot more time away from the earth plane. I asked if he had any parting words to share with us, and he had at this time glanced up at me to make eye contact, if you will, to really drive this particular point home, which is, he said to me, he's really okay. He's more than okay, in fact, and that the death of the body isn't the end, it's actually only the beginning. So that is what I have for you on the energy of Michael Hutchence, and we are now going to move on to Hugh Jackman. Now, Hugh Jackman is a very successful Australian actor that has broken into the Hollywood industry as well. One of his first breakout roles was playing Logan / the Wolverine in the X-Men series. He also, one of my favorite, and if this is a reveal too, by the way, if you guys haven't seen it, a movie by the name of Kate and Leopold. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch it and you'll see how it's a reveal. As well as one of my personal favorite movies, he starred in a movie by the name of The Prestige. Now, Hugh Jackman is also an Emmy winner, a Grammy winner, and a Tony Award winner as well. And I think he's even been nominated for an Academy Award. So he is a rather successful and decorated actor. Now, Hugh Jackman has also been married to a woman by the name of Deborah Lee Furness from 1996 until it was recently shared that they have separated from one another now in 2023. Let's see what Hugh Jackman's energy wanted to share with me. So, he would do anything to join the club. Now, before I go any further, in case you don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, I have linked the video that I have done on the movie industry and Hollywood down below. I highly recommend when you're done watching this video, go back and watch that one, because there is essential information that's going to enable this video and this particular content to make a lot more sense to you. Because the way in which we have come to understand the Hollywood industry is people move to Hollywood hoping they're going to have a big break one day. They're going to successfully break into the industry. They're going to take acting classes, they're going to get agents, they're going to do some shit roles until they can slowly move their way up. But is that actually in fact what's going on behind the veil? No. And what we are looking at here on this channel is what is going on behind that 3D veil. So if you want to come to understand how the movie industry actually works, go back and watch that video. For anyone else that you have been here with me for a while and you already know, if you want a refresher, you of course can go back and you can watch that video as well. It's not essential though, because you already kind of know what this so-called club that I speak of is. And it's been hinted at so many other times. Louis C.K. in one of his stand-up routines had said, it's a big club and we ain't in it. There's a number of clubs playing out on the world stage at any one particular time. Hollywood is one such kind of a club. It's not the only club, but this is the club that we're talking about in reference to Hugh Jackman. So yes, as soon as I had connected to his energy, he had shared he would do anything to join the club. Now, I thought I didn't hear him right, because joining the club is usually secondary to joining the industry. It's the price to pay, if you will, for entry into the actual industry. You don't get to be a household name in Hollywood or the music industry unless you have agreed to join the club. And the club has different terms that they put forth. So I was like, well, this isn't different. This is interesting because it's usually a byproduct. But he's saying no. He would do anything to join the club. Not the Hollywood industry, but the club. So I asked him what he had said, thinking that I had misunderstood him, and he said it again. He would do anything to join the club, and Hollywood was in fact secondary. Now, Hugh Jackman has a very mild arrogance about him. And here's why I say so. Because he had shared with me that he was always good looking, and he knew that he was good looking, and that he was also talented, and that he could use that and parlay that into success. And that it would be almost easy for him to slip into the industry because of his talent and his good looks. But what would actually be more difficult for him was, in fact, joining the club and all that it entailed. And that's why he would do anything to join it, because he saw it as a personal challenge for himself. So look at him almost as if he is a contestant on one of those competition shows like American Ninja or Fear Factor. So therefore, he spent a lot of time working on his mental fortitude and building himself up so that no matter what they would throw his way, he would be ready. Now, he also shared with me he had become so adept at compartmentalizing different parts of himself that he himself doesn't even know what he has tucked away because he doesn't want to know what he had to do to join the industry. So entering Hollywood was in fact a personal challenge for him, but it's like or the way he wanted to share it with me was akin to once we go to see a movie and we have that movie ticket. Not back in the day, because now we have like, you buy seats online, you're gonna have like an electronic ticket, or you're gonna have like an email receipt for the ticket that you had bought. But think like back in the day, like maybe even like your parents back in the day when you were younger and they would take you to see a movie, you would get a physical ticket to enter the movie, and then they would rip it in half and they would give you one half and they would keep one half, right? So he is kind of comparing it to a ticket from entering a movie back in the day. Once you buy the ticket to enter the movie theater, do you keep the ticket there after seeing the movie? No, when you leave the movie, you throw your half of the ticket away. You don't keep it. So he had shared with me that he looks at what he had done to gain entry into the Hollywood industry akin to the same way. He compartmentalized it because he didn't need to keep that other half of the ticket. He had already gained entry, if you will, to see the movie. He had already gained entry into the club and into the industry. So why would he keep the other half of the ticket? So he compartmentalized it so he himself doesn't even remember what he had to do to enter it. Now, he did acknowledge that he sometimes has to go in for a refresher. A refresher to what he had to do to join the industry. And on occasion, he has to go back for a refresher course. Or he could get knocked down a ring and maybe not get the more plum roles that he would want. However, at his age, he doesn't really see the need, because unless an actor is Tom Cruise, all roles eventually start drying up as the actors age. Now, he also did share, because I did directly ask him, because he's rather forthcoming. So he's not like a Michael Hutchence. It's like, he's so far away. I don't think he really wants to be here with me. He has so many other things he wants to explore. Hugh Jackman is not quite like this. He's chatty. He was more than happy to connect with me and to share all of these things with me. So I did actually, in fact, ask him if he loves men, because he is an example that I choose time and again, how Hollywood actors are married to women because it's a beard, right? What's a beard? A beard is facial hair that conceals a man's face. A beard in the Hollywood industry is where a man is. Sorry, my crystal shifted under my ass and it was poking. A beard in the Hollywood industry is where a homosexual actor is married to a female because it's concealing his true sexual identity. Not that anyone in the Hollywood industry cares. It's just they don't necessarily want that to be a deterrent or to detract attention away from the heartthrob's viability of being seen as a heartthrob in the Hollywood industry. So they will have men marry women to act as a beard and conceal their actual sexual orientation. So he did in fact confirm with me that he does love men. But interestingly enough, he also shared with me that he loves women, or he would not have agreed to marry one. In this case, a woman named Deborah Lee Furness. He also shared with me, because again, he is chatty, so he's not just gonna give me the yes or no answers, he's gonna expand on what I've asked him. He also shared with me that because of his good looks, getting dates or getting laid was always so easy for him. So, because he is always somebody that goes for the challenge in his life, just like he would do anything to join the club and not necessarily like the Hollywood industry, because that was a personal challenge. Like, what are they going to throw at me? And am I going to be able to have the mental fortitude to accept this and deal with this? So he very much viewed it the same way when it came to his dating life. It was so easy for him to get dates with women because he was good looking. So because he goes for the challenge, he wanted to see if he could, in fact, challenge himself to attract men and even fall in love with men. And he found that he could, and that the relationships with men were always so much easier than the relationships he had had with women. And when he had first joined the industry, he thought that maybe that would be a deterrent in Hollywood, right? Because he swung both ways. So he had assumed that many of the actors in Hollywood also swang that way. He had discovered that some producers and directors do too as well. So it was not a problem at all that was his sexual preference. However, what he did discover that was unexpected is that the problem was not to be involved with a man, because being a newbie in the industry, he would be sure to be very popular with all of the other men, other actors, other producers, also other directors. So it was therefore better to be in a so-called unsigned free agent, and not then to declare yourself as being who you are, or even going into the industry having a secret boyfriend or a secret, not so secret lover. Remain a so-called free agent. Let everybody know that that's the way you swing, but that you're not in a relationship with a man, because you're going to be popular and everybody's going to want to, date you, for lack of a better word. So be a free agent and do not be shackled to a man. Therefore, it was actually even seen, again, this goes back to the beard concept, better to be shackled to a woman for appearance's sake instead. Now, his wife, Deborah Lee Furness, was a very successful and powerful woman in her own right, and therefore she felt she needed her own beard and her own husband for image purposes and to anchor her to something, because she too swang that way. She too is somebody that is attracted to women of her own gender. But she wanted to have a husband to anchor her for image purposes. So he was her beard the same way she was his beard. And because she too needed her own beard, and because they did genuinely get along as friends, why not? Now, what was then shared with me is that they had a loose agreement. They didn't necessarily have like a written contract, because some celebrities in the industry do actually have written contracts and strict contracts. This is where I'm going to direct your attention if you are interested in going back and watching the most recent AMA, which I have linked down below. Watch the segment on Ashton Kutcher, because he had brought in a great deal of supplemental information about the contracts that celebrity couples do have. Like, for example, how many times a week they are going to have marital relations and everything else that you can imagine under the sun. Why would a couple need to actually have that in a contract as a prenuptial agreement? Because if you are genuinely loving and into the person that you're getting married to, why do you need to have a contract stating how many times a week you're going to have relations with them? So some couples do actually have written contracts outlining all of these things. They did not. They didn't have a written contract. They just more had like a loose contract, like a gentleman's agreement, if you will. Like, I need you to be my beard. You need me to be your beard. We're going to get together for beard purposes. We get along as friends. We like each other. We love each other. We are just not going to have that kind of a marriage. So they had a loose agreement, no contract, and lots of space for themselves to live their own lives and to do their own things and to do their own people. But she also shared that she genuinely wanted to have kids. Therefore, they modified their loose gentleman's agreement to also include adoption. And the terms of their agreement were that they were to stay together until the kids were of a certain age, and then they would part ways, as they had both played their parts and they had both played them well, and now they move on and they wish each other well. That is the reading I have for you on Hugh Jackman. Please comment down below if you have any additional questions. Now, the last person whose energy I'm looking into today is an actor by the name of Mel Gibson. Now, Mel Gibson first rose to fame by starring in Mad Max, Lethal Weapon. He later went on to make his own movies such as Passion of the Christ and Braveheart, which Braveheart actually had won him both a Golden Globe and an Academy Award for Best Director. Now, Mel Gibson also had a great number of years later a situation and a lot of controversy that led to him being blacklisted from the industry for over 10 years. Very notable, one could say. So let's see what Mel's energy wanted to share with me. Now, Mel has a fantastically lively mind and is incredibly creative. He is also clairsentient, which is the gift of clear feeling, which means that he can go into any environment and he can feel in his solar plexus the energy of the environment that he is going into, as well as the energy of the people that he is around. So he then therefore could feel the energy of a room and the people around him. He shared with me that he wanted to get into the industry, and always with the intention and the hope of actually being a director and crafting stories and being a storyteller. However, he was also first content to act and really learn the craft from the actor's point of view first, so that way he could be the best possible director, because he would already have the experience of approaching a role from the actor's point of view as well. So he really takes his craft and his place in the craft very, very seriously. But directing was always first and foremost his dream. Now, being clairsentient, which is again the gift of clear feeling, he had shared with me that he could always feel when something was off, but he couldn't necessarily figure out what. So he would then therefore go into meetings and he would see the person that he had gone into the meeting change. Like halfway through, they would just, maybe they're like excusing themselves to go to the bathroom and they come back and it's like, something's not right with them. They're acting completely different. But it wasn't a mood disorder, and he wasn't so naive as to not think that it wasn't attributed to drugs. However, it was not the side effects of any particular drug that he himself might have had experience with, or at least having experience seeing people interact with. Now, he was slowly, because he was seeing all of the changes occur within people, actors, directors, the movie executives, he was slowly starting to see how people were changing. And again, he was clairsentient. So it might not have been like these big overt changes that somebody would like be able to pinpoint and put their finger on. It was more like he was feeling like something's not right here. So he was slowly coming to the realization that Hollywood was actually not a movie industry at all. But he still didn't know what it was yet. Now, he had joined the Hollywood industry before the club took over the industry. Go back and see Parts Passing on Hugh Jackman, and go back and watch the movie on the video I had done on the Hollywood industry. He had joined the club prior, he had joined the industry prior to the club taking over the industry. So his way of getting in was completely diametrically opposed to the way, excuse me, in which Hugh Jackman had joined the industry. So therefore, certain activities might have been prevalent, but they weren't pay to play. Like, maybe these things were going on because these people were genuinely interested in them, but it wasn't like, hey, if you want to join, these are the terms of the contract. We're going to expose you to these things. You're going to have to partake in them. If you don't want to, you can't get into the industry. So they may have still been prevalent. However, because of his faith and the number of kids that he had, I think he has like 6 or 8 kids, and he has a very, very strong, I believe, like Christian faith. So because of the fact that when he was getting into the industry, he was seen as being like very, very, like he's a man of his faith and he has a lot of kids, he was pegged to be a little bit square. So he really was not exposed to much. Therefore, his clairsentience was screaming loud and clear, but he didn't necessarily have the 3-dimensional evidence as what was actually causing the change in the people around him. But he knew something was still up. Now, this is also without him having the understanding that the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA has an office in Hollywood, and that scripts have to pass through the CIA to get approval before they are made. So he kept trying to get certain films made, and he could not understand why they weren't getting made, because the CIA wasn't approving them. The reason Braveheart was so successful and did in fact earn him both the Golden Globe as well as the Academy Award for Best Director was because he had been in the industry for a long time and they liked to reward their own, even if he was not part of the club. But they were also trying to direct him towards certain projects that they deemed to have been safe, and to direct him away from other projects they didn't want him to make, because he kept trying to get certain projects made and they were like, what the actual fuck? He's just not getting it. Like this, we're not greenlighting this project. It's just not the fuck happening. But he was so persistent. He was like a hound dog on the scent, and he really wanted to get these projects greenlighted. They weren't going to make them. So what they were trying to actually do was reward him for the so-called safe projects like Braveheart, that they felt if he was given the Academy Award and a nod, so to say, for staying on course, he would continue to make more films like this and would then therefore abandon the more controversial films. Especially when after he had won the Academy Award and people kept saying to him, congratulations. It seems, Mel, like you have really found your calling here. Please keep making films like this. But he felt called to do more. So the Oscar was an attempt to get him to stay on a particular course, but he kept pushing no matter what. It was then deemed that they needed to send him a really strong message because he wasn't getting it. He was like a hound dog on the scent of something, and he wouldn't give up on it until he had found what he was looking for. So no matter how many times they were telling him they were not going to greenlight making certain projects that he really wanted to get made, he wasn't taking no for an answer. And one of those projects was The Passion of the Christ. But no matter how many times they told him no, stay the course, he didn't want to, because he was on the scent of something big, and that's what he was passionate about making. So they decided they had to send him a really strong and clear message. Now, you might know where we're going with this, because what had happened was that Mel had actually been out one night, and he had been pulled over by the police, and he had been arrested for driving under the influence. But not only do police officers now have cameras on their bodies recording everything that they're doing in all of their interactions, police cars do too. And Mel was recorded saying something incredibly controversial that had actually led to him being blacklisted. Now, I'm going to repeat exactly what he had said, even though I know this is supposed to be like a major no-no, right? Like, unless you're black, you can't say the N-word. Now, he had said so-called disparaging comments about Jews, but I'm a Jew. So first and foremost, I can repeat them. But even more than that, I'm going to share with you that because my videos are 98% channeled and 2% personal opinion, as a Jew, I do not actually take offense at what he had said. Here's why. When we are operating in the confines of the three-dimensional veil and we're only on one side of it, we don't necessarily understand what's going on the other side. Mel did. And what Mel had actually said was, because he had spent so many years in the industry, and he had come to understand that the movie industry, being one such club, is run by one particular maybe sect of people. There's more than one club that is actually operating in the world right now. There's the movie industry club, there's the politician club, there's all of these different clubs. So the disparaging comments that he had made were not about the regular everyday Jewish people like perhaps you or even me. It's about the members of the club that are treating their faith, the Jewish faith, as a beard. Similar to the way in which a homosexual actor will treat his spouse as a beard in concealing his sexual preferences. So he was in the know. He was not, I'm not saying this because I have to convince you of anything. I'm driving the point home. You do you, boo. You can believe that he's an anti-Semite if you want to. You can believe that he was just operating with the advanced awareness from spending so many years in the industry. It's a fucking club and we ain't in it. So he had come to understand that the people he was referencing are not the everyday 99%ers of the Jewish faith. It was those that are in a different club that happen to perhaps be of the Jewish faith or be perhaps hiding behind the Jewish faith. Those are the ones that he was referencing. And what did he say? And I quote, "Fucking Jews. The Jews are responsible for all the wars in the world." Then he had turned to the police officer and he asked him, "Are you a Jew?" End quote. What was actually going on behind the veil was his recognition of these so-called Jews that run the world and run the portion of the world that is responsible for the world wars. But isn't it convenient if somebody is hiding behind a so-called protected class or a so-called protected faith, in which if somebody wants to come forth and levy accusations against them, cannot then therefore come forward, because should they come forward and say what they believe or what they think or even what they know, will then be accused of being an anti-Semite, or will then be accused of being, let's say, transphobic, or will be accused of being a racist. It's really fucking convenient if somebody is doing nefarious things and they do want to hide, that they hide in plain sight behind a protected class or a protected religion. And that's why I don't take offense to what he said. Because he was acknowledging what he had come to understand at that point from being in the Hollywood club. But that it was so much bigger than just the Hollywood club. because there be multiple clubs operating simultaneously at the same time. So this was the way in which they were going to send him a really strong message of what can happen to somebody if they don't play by the rules. Because he needed a refresher. Your dog is eating your favorite shoes. You're going to have to find alternative ways to drive the point home to them that your shoes are not negotiable. They were trying to find alternative ways in driving the point home to him that certain movies that he wanted to get made were not negotiable. And he just needed to be reminded, what happens if you don't heal, right? You snap your fingers, you point at the floor, and you say to your dog, sit. And they don't sit. You want them to sit. He was not sitting. So what had actually gone on the night of his arrest was, it's ridiculously easy, first and foremost, if you want to be a chaos causer. Here's why. As we have discussed, alcohol is a great fucking way to open people up and allow nefarious entities that want to be chaos causers to come into their body. Yes, I have linked a video that I had done on that in the past down below. You are welcome to go back and you are welcome to view it. But not only is it ridiculously easy to open somebody up to chaos causers, it's also ridiculously easy if you're in the club and you're like the 1%ers to orchestrate an event in which a person would be drinking, and then therefore to further orchestrate an event in which they would be arrested. You have the police right there on call. You know the route in which that person is going to take to drive home. You make sure that the police are there. And you make sure that they know the car and the license plate of who they are meant to pull over. No, this is not all police officers. It is some. The ones that are in the club, a different kind of a club. If you want to learn more about it, comment down below, let me know. We can look into it. There'll be a lot of different clubs in the world, okay? We're not in it. As Louis C.K. has said, it's all one big club, and we ain't in it. If you're a 99%er, you ain't the fuck in it. So what had actually happened on the night, it was orchestrated that he was going to be under the influence, and he was going to be inebriated, and he was going to be driving, and in which he was going to get pulled over. And why then did he also ask the police officer if the police officer was a Jew, was because he had come to understand the ones that he were referencing were in the club, and I think a part of him was even suspicious why he had in fact been pulled over at all. I think he knew what was up, and that's why he was asking the officer if the officer was a Jew. It was his way of actually asking, are you in the club too? Not that the officer was going to confirm or deny it, but he knew what was going on. This was an effort to get him to heal, because what happened thereafter was that he was in fact blacklisted for 10 years' time. Now he did ultimately and eventually come back, make his way back into the industry, and he has been making movies again. But how eventually did he get Passion of the Christ to be made? I think I had read at the time, again reminding you, I don't do any research, so I didn't do a lick of research in this case. I think I had remembered reading at the time that he had actually used his own money to get Passion of the Christ made, because he was realizing no studio was going to attach their name to it. And also after what had happened to him and him being blacklisted, no one was going to hire him to get anything made anyway. He had dumped his own money into making Passion of the Christ. That's how much he thought the telling of the story was an important one. And if you have seen that movie, maybe you can then also come to understand why he felt it was such an important story to tell. So what had happened to Mel, though he has now worked his way back up, what was actually going on behind the veil was that, wrong page, was that bad dogs don't get their favorite chew toy, and Mel had been a very bad dog. So that concludes my reading on Mel Gibson. Please comment down below if you have any further questions about him. And as I say with all of my videos, they sometimes be controversial. So please take what resonates, leave the rest behind, and as always, and until next time, stay in the high vibration.